YouTube podcasts have been a thing for many years now, and throughout their time, there's been many successful ones, such as Impulsive and Full Send Podcast as the two standouts. And you've seen the title. We'll be looking at Steiny from the Full Send Podcast and Andrew Schulz's recent beef, which has caught the attention of millions of fans. Since Steiny has appeared on the Full Send Podcast, the amount of hate he receives on a daily basis is something I have yet to see from a podcast co-host. The only other resemblance would be Mike Mila towards the start of his time on Impulsive. In today's video, we'll be looking at Steiny and why he's so hated, and the entire Andrew Schulz situation that has captivated fans worldwide. So stick around till the end for the full details. Most of you watching would know who Andrew Schulz is, and if not, he's one of the biggest comedians in terms of social reach. You could say he's on a similar level to Theo Von, as a lot of the younger generation are seeing his content through TikTok now. His style is known to push the boundaries and be quite direct, which is why many people love his work. Andrew Schulz has a podcast of his own called Flagrant, which is easily the most entertaining podcast on YouTube right now, as he manages to have 3 other co-hosts while he maintains the main focus, and it works very well. We have seen in the past with the likes of Impulsive that format doesn't exactly work well for them. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the post notification bell. This way you'll never miss out on any future celebrity videos similar to these. A viral clip went round a few weeks back of the manager of the Full Send Podcast, John Shahidi, who is also the mastermind behind the success of NELK Seltzer Happy Dad. And he was asked if there were any episodes of the Full Send Podcast that never got aired. And let's just say, as soon as the words left his mouth, a whole online storm happened, and everyone went at Steiny as per usual.
You guys ever shoot podcasts and not post them?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a sore subject. But yeah, there was one. But there was an episode with Andrew Schulz. Man, sorry Steinberg, man. I love you, bro. Like, don't text me middle of the night upset. But Schulz went after him. Well, I think, like, Schulz was kind of like, went after Steiny. And he, and it was pretty awkward.
As soon as people heard that Andrew Schulz went off on Steiny, the entire internet wanted to witness the episode. People were posting stuff like, Steiny is in a delusional world where he thinks he's even remotely equal to Schulz. Steiny trying to say that nobody was laughing at Schulz is wild. We already know Steiny was getting roasted and got hurt like he always does. How Steiny is still on the pod is beyond me. I thought he was okay in the beginning, but I think that was more because I was so sick of Bob. The only way I still watch this podcast is when the guests are top notch. I couldn't even get 3 minutes into this clip without cringing. It should be Kyle and Brad, and that's it, unless they find someone else that's good. It's almost everyone podcast episode where everyone goes after Steiny. It's quite interesting how he still manages to stay on the podcast, although at the same time, just him being there brings thousands of comments discussing him, which drives attention to the podcast. As regardless, the guests they have on will bring a certain viewership. So combined, it drives good engagement every episode. The fact that there's an unreleased podcast out there where Andrew Schulz rips into Steiny is obvious why it's gaining so much traction, as everyone loves Andrew Schulz and how he delivers his roasts. And on the other hand, you have Steiny, who the majority of people seem to dislike due to his ego and how he handles himself. So no wonder fans are bombarding messages to NELK to release it. In their most recent podcast featuring Aiden Ross and Rice Gum, right at the start, they addressed the situation and why it hasn't been released, where Steiny tries to defend himself, and it just made fans even more mad.
At the end of the day, it's up to you what goes out, and we already know, like, you're not gonna hold back, or you're gonna, like,
not always. Really. I actually respect your...
No, but that's what I'm saying, is you're gonna at least always listen to what I have to say and have my back, but at the end of the day, you're not gonna, like, keep shit away from people.
Yeah, I think we probably would have. I think we probably. The reason it didn't go out is because Schulz didn't want it out.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, I think
we, not that, like, I don't respect your opinion, but I think we would have convinced you to let it go out.
Yeah, I was probably being a bitch.
But at that time, you really didn't want it out.
They've claimed it was on Andrew Schulz's side too, which is understandable, as it does just seem like a very awkward podcast. But now it's a whole thing that the internet wants, so they might as well release it, as the whole shtick around it now is that it's a rubbish podcast. So going into it with that and it delivering will satisfy people, because if nothing was said and people saw the episode at face value with Andrew Schulz and NELK together, fans would be excited. and if it didn't deliver, it would get major backlash. So if anything, it's better this way, giving the episode a premise. Before we go further into the video, leave your thoughts in the comment section down below about Steiny. Do you think he receives too much unnecessary hate, or does he bring it on himself? Comment below. Like we briefly mentioned earlier on in the video, Andrew Schulz has a podcast of his own called Flagrant, where he's had some big guests on such as Joe Rogan, Mr. Beast, Logan Paul, just to name a few. In an episode he put out yesterday, he touched on the Full Send podcast situation, and he's made it clear he wants it to be released.
And then what I heard was that But they also were like, hey, we'll edit it and then see what's going on. And I was like, look, it's fine. It's your pod, whatever you want to do. But then what I heard is that Steiny was like, please don't release that podcast. Yeah. So I think he's acting as if he's like, yeah, let's just have it out there. I think they should release it still. Yeah. Like, I just put it out.
You already know, behind the scenes, Steiny is trying to do everything in his power to convince Kyle to not post the episode. But yesterday, Kyle did confirm he'll be posting the Andrew Schulz podcast. He posted to his IG story, dropping Thursday, we're gonna drop the long-lost Schulz pod on Twitter. Steve is in this one. YouTube won't allow his face, his voice, even his hand had to be cut out of the Trump interview. At NELK Boys Twitter Thursday. With the amount of hype now behind the podcast, one thing is for certain. They won't need to worry about the viewing figures because it'll be in the millions, that's for sure. A lot of people to this day still don't really even know who Steiny is and what he does, so we'll check out some backstory to him. Aaron used to work as a car dealer at his father's underground poker games before he became famous. Aaron was a hustler from an early age, always striving to be better than he was. He frequently applied for movie parts, but was consistently turned down. Steiny always had an outgoing personality and strong networking skills. He used these abilities during his poker games and frequently made friends with other business people. From there, Steiny had the opportunity to interview with Bob Menery, one of the Full Send podcast founders and former members, for a position as a personal assistant. In Abu Dhabi in 2020, while the NELK boys were visiting for a UFC event, later in their visit, Bob introduced Steiny to them. He was familiar with the NELK boys and saw a chance to advance, so he subsequently offered to become Steve's personal assistant. Steve accepted, another well-liked NELK member, and gave him the responsibility of managing his girlfriend's OF. Over time, Steiny developed into a crucial component of Steve's business. He would even suggest practical video ideas that other NELK members began to take note of, and he would start to appear in a few of them that the audience grew to like. When offered the option to either become Steve's personal assistant or a full-time podcast host, Steiny made the decision without hesitation. Anyway, this concludes today's video. Be sure to subscribe to LoafTube for future celebrity videos, and turn on that post notification bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. Until then, see you in the next one.